Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about our digestive system inside the body. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So like the name suggests, the digestive system is basically how our body digests food. So everything that we do as humans, every time we run or talk or move, anything like that requires energy. And where are we going to get this energy from? We get all of our energy from food. Basically, the process of getting energy from food is called digestion. The digestive system, like I said, like the name suggests, basically how this occurs. So we're going to talk bit by bit about it, but basically, as you can see from this overview, there's a bunch of different parts, basically from your head all the way through the torso. Each have their own little function, little role, but we'll talk about each of them in turn. We're going to go over here to the left and kind of look over at our big model of the digestive system. So you can see it's a little bit freaky to look at when it's outside of your body, but basically this is inside you and you can recognize your mouth right at the top. The mouth is where this whole process begins. The mouth is where all the food that you eat enters your body. And a couple other things start. This is where the beginning of breakdown of food occurs. So we've got our teeth right out in front up there. Your teeth and your tongue help to kind of mechanically break down food. They chomp it up, break it down into smaller pieces. It helps soften and moisten the food, so it's easier to break down as well. It also helps propel it back into your throat. And then also inside of your mouth, we have our mucus that's produced by the oral mucosa membrane. And that also helps to kind of soften your food molecules. So also inside the mouth, we have our salivary glands too. You cannot see them from here, but basically the salivary glands, like the name suggests, they produce saliva or spit, and that helps soften food a little bit more. It helps also initiate the breakdown of starchy substances and fats. And then in addition to all that, it also produces liquids that kind of keep your tongue and your teeth healthy. So lots of important roles happening up in the mouth. Towards the back of the throat right up here, again, not labeled here, but basically the back of this part right here, that's called the pharynx. That's the back of your throat right before it reaches the esophagus, or this pipe that comes down we'll talk about in a second. But the pharynx has a couple of different parts. Two of those are part of the digestive system. And again, the main role of the pharynx here, basically just propelling food that's broken down from your mouth into your esophagus. So that's kind of a little transport role right there. So mouth, pharynx, all that leads into this long pipe right here called the esophagus. The esophagus is basically the food pipe to your body right there. The main role of that, again, transporting materials that come from your mouth through the pharynx into the stomach. So far we've basically talked about mostly slight breakdown, a little bit of transportation. Now, the rest of this lower half of the digestive system, this is where all the fun, all the action comes in. So food that gets made its way down the esophagus makes its way into our stomach right here. So this is this on the back right here, the bigger organism, if you can flip it around, it's this part right on the right-hand side directly connected to the esophagus with that little bump in the middle of it. That's our stomach. So role of the stomach, basically, that is chemical and mechanical breakdown of food. So mechanical breakdown right there, we have muscular contraction in the stomach that help process it. And then the chemical breakdown is really interesting here too. So gastric acid, other chemicals, they kind of turn this soluble food, or they turn the food that's come down into your throat into a soluble liquid called chyme. Chyme spelled C-H-Y-M-E. But more chemicals get added to chyme inside of the stomach, and then it gets moved on to the small intestine. But before we talk about the small intestine, we're going to talk about a lot of these other really important organs right here. So directly to the left of the, let me scoot this over a little bit more. Directly to the left of the stomach, this darker organism, this bigger one right here, this is our liver. So the liver has a bunch of different roles also. Part of that is helping to filter toxins out, but in the digestive system, it produces glucose and maintains sugar levels. Let's scoot this over a little bit more. Produces glucose, maintains sugar levels. It also produces bile, and bile helps break down our fats and our fatty acids. So lots of different roles coming from the liver right here, but all of that bile that I just said helps break down fats and fatty acids. That gets stored in the gallbladder, which is slightly difficult to see right here, but if you look in, there's like a little yellow ribbony looking thing in the back right there. That's our gallbladder. That's basically the purse that stores all of the bile that the liver produces. So what that's connected to, actually, this fleshy white part right here that you can kind of see looks like a piece of chicken. That's your pancreas. The main role for the pancreas there is kind of controlling the sugar level in the bloodstream. But it also has another function too for the digestive system, where it's got exocrine cells in there, and those secrete digestive enzymes. and those help break down foods a little bit more, digest it. So that all gets added into the chyme, and that chyme, that broken down liquid from food, that gets moved into the small intestine. Oops, not that part, this part right here. That's the small intestine. And I'll scoot around a little bit more so we can see that a little bit better. But in the middle of this whole blob right here, all of that wiggly stuff in the middle, that's the small intestine, which is kind of strangely named because it's actually longer than the large intestine. It's 6 feet long. And this is where the real heavy meat of that digestive process occurs. This is where all of the nutrients, all the water, the ions, vitamins, all the good stuff that we're getting from food gets absorbed right in here by these organisms. It takes a little bit of time, but once all of those nutrients and everything, once that's all absorbed, then all of that chyme, all that food gets, the material gets moved down into the large intestine, which surrounds it. It's that thicker part around the middle part there. And we'll actually look at that on its own over here. We have another little handy little large intestine model for you guys to look at. So that middle part, the squishy part that's not shown here, that's a small intestine and moves on to the large intestine. This is basically where your feces becomes feces. So inside of our large intestine, this is where all of that material becomes dehydrated, all the water is removed, all the salts are taken back up into the bloodstream. And then all the indigestible materials, everything that's left after this whole long process of digestion, gets kind of compacted, dehydrated, and it gets prepared to exit the body through the anus down here. So all in all, this process takes about 30 to 40 hours. It's a very long process of digestion. But at the end, all of the food that we get, all the energy gets taken out, all of the nutrients get taken out and used by the body. And then what's left is our indigestible waste that comes out as feces, and then that exits the body. So that's the digestive system in a nutshell. Hopefully that makes sense.